All right, so today I have on with me Gina, and she is a registered dietitian. And Gina and I only met like a few months ago, but I feel like I've known her for like my whole life. How
I
you doing
know
today?
hello, Tammy. Thank you for having me on. I know we are getting along so well. We got together for a coffee like a couple months ago or whatever, and we were just like, oh my God, you too? It's like we get each other. It's been great. And it's nice. I feel like, when you get in your late 20s, it's like, meeting new friends. You don't have as many opportunities to do that. So it's been great. I definitely appreciate you. I tell you all the time.
I know, I appreciate you too, because like you said, yeah, it's so interesting and like it can be difficult, especially like depending on somebody's situation, like if you move somewhere new or like if you're unmarried or you are married and like or you have kids and other people don't have kids. So it's like it can be difficult to like find friends. So it's cool that like our stories definitely like aligned and we had so much in common and yeah, so I'm really glad to have you on today. So why don't you then tell us then to start with a little bit about like your background and kind of what led you to becoming a dietitian?
Yeah, so I think it really started like in my childhood. I was overweight, chunky, but like by definition, most definitely like overweight in my childhood. Um, and it really like of course like affected my self-esteem, my self-worth in so many ways. And it really stuck with me for like a really long time. Even as a child, I remember just like feeling really negatively about my body, just truly connecting my worth with the way that I looked. I really thought that I was like ugly. I thought nobody would ever love me, or like that, like of course boys would like never look my way. And it really kind of made me feel like even as a child, I remember thinking like, oh, I'm so excited to do this, but like, oh, but wait, I'm still fat. It would like always bring me back. And I really started to feel like I literally felt like I didn't deserve good things because of my weight and the way that I looked and things like that. So even from childhood, I really started to make those connections. But yeah, so I was overweight in my childhood. And then as I got a little bit older, I started getting into like, reading food labels. I would hear things about nutrition. Also, I forgot to mention too, like when I was like, I think I was like 10 years old, I was like flipping the channels on the TV and I discovered the Food Network. And then I like just like fell in love. I've always loved food, obviously, but that really made me into like cooking, understanding how to cook things and how food works, different combinations and, what all these different things are. So I got really into cooking when I was a kid. And then as I got older too, I just got into like reading food labels. People around me were always like on diets. So I learned, oh, there's light ice cream and regular ice cream and all different, we always had the 100-calorie packs at home, like all different things like that. So by the time I got into high school, I was really into that. I was like running track at the time. So I was like into working out more. And weirdly enough, at that point, our track coach was semi freshly out of college. And one of her friends was a dietitian, and this was my senior year of high school. So she came in and talked to us like eating as an athlete and all of that good stuff. And I just feel like I was like totally enamored by that conversation. I was like, oh my God, like I need to do this. Like it all kind of like made sense to me. Like I like to eat healthy. I like to cook. I love food. Like, oh my God, like I could do this. I could be a dietitian. At that time, funny enough, I had already gotten in to my college and I literally was going to study journalism. It was a completely different major. I ended up, going to school, changing my major, and then here I am today. So that was a little bit of my journey of, how I got into this.
Oh my goodness, forgot you almost did journalism. That's so cool because that's what I did.
Oh, really? I know. I was like
Yeah.
all about it. I was like, I want to be like, but at the time, like she was really like Juliana Rancic and like talk to the celebrities on the like whatever. I don't even know what I wanted to do. I just always was like, I want to be famous and get myself out there. And then you become an adult and you're like, oh, that entails a lot. So I just kind of took a different route. But
I
yeah, it's pretty cool.
oh, pause for 1 second. I forgot to mention everybody that if you're watching this on YouTube, pardon my scary looking eyes. I went to the eye doctor and I feel like that's all I can see right now. But anyway,
Looks
um
good. Like I said, looks like you just have brown eyes. Today, Tammy just has brown eyes. That's
brown-eyed girl. I
it.
get to live it for once.
Yes, welcome
Um
to the club.
so do you feel like your relationship with looking at the labels and learning about food, do you feel like it was healthy or do you feel like it became kind of like problematic?
That's a really good point. I think it kind of became problematic for me, without even realizing at the time, or even just like thinking back now, like, ooh, I remember thinking like I'd almost like would like memorize them, like, oh, one serving of potato chips is 10 grams of fat and whatever calories, and that would I feel like discouraged me from eating that, right? So it probably was a start of like a not so healthy relationship with food where I already kind of didn't have a healthy relationship with food because I've always, and I struggle to this day, even as an adult now and as a dietitian myself, I still struggle with like overeating. I've always had the propensity to just like, I just always have had that. So I had that as a kid. And then, as I got into the reading the labels and stuff, I feel like it kind of turned into like a different kind of obsession. It's like the overeating and then like the restrictive eating. And a lot of times they go together in an unfortunate cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And like I feel like when we went to school too and like, when we graduated 2013, yeah, I feel like it was still common to like be the body positivity, I feel like movement hadn't really started yet. So I feel like we were still pressured to look a certain way and like be a certain fit and stuff. Because I know for me, like I don't know about you, but I think that freaking app, my Fitness Pal, that's like where stuff started for me. Because I was like
Mhm.
trying to like look good for prom. And then, but like you said, like memorizing, like, okay, like, oh, this is an apple's like 60 calories or like whatever. Like, and then you start to like, okay, well, I have to stay under like 1200 or whatever it was. And then just to like, okay, like I'm good. Like I worked out, so now I'm under calories. I remember that so much.
Yes, tracking macros. I did it for a time, and that was like I already had like some disordered patterns around food and exercise. I feel like before that, and I tried it, and that's like ultimate like triggering for me because I'll I even talk with my clients, right? It's like some people truly there's like no emotion behind it for them. For them, it's really a tool. It's like data points and that's it. And that's good. Like for some people it does work. It makes them aware, holds them accountable, they enjoy it. For other people like you and I, it's much more triggering. It's like, oh my God, I ate a single tortilla chip. I have to track that. Or my gum had 5 calories. Like where do you draw the line? And for a lot of us, the lines get blurred and it's really easy to step into like more just so many people have, and even for myself, I feel like I never had like a maybe a full or even like diagnosed eating disorder, but I definitely had disordered patterns around food and exercise. And many people struggle with that. They may not have like an actual like diagnosable eating disorder, but they do have eating disordered eating patterns and disordered exercise patterns as well. And it's really tough. Yeah,
Hmm. So you went to college and you majored in then you to become a dietitian.
right.
So how was your relationship then with like eating and food and body image, would you say? Like, take us through
Yeah.
maybe your years of college.
College was the worst of it for me. I had some of it in high school, like that whole thing where like, oh my God, I'm so fat and blah blah blah. And of course, looking back, you're like, oh, I wish I was as fat as I was back in high school. I remember in gym class we got weighed and I was like 119 pounds and I almost had like a meltdown, God forbid. Anyway, um yeah, so I enjoy I even although some of that was present in high school, it wasn't as much. I think when I went to college, like those 4 years, even the year after that, I always said the ages from like 18 to 25 were like a whirlwind. I feel like for me, that was like, it was a lot. College is probably the worst of it for me, though, for my disorder patterns around exercise and food. And I didn't have any self-awareness to know that until years later. Like I went to a therapist and I would like tell her about what I was going through. And she was like, that sounds really disordered, like how you thought about food and how you exercised. That like totally blew my mind. I had never thought of it that way. Um, but it was really bad, honestly. um I went to like I went to Penn State, so I went to like a large school, and it's a D1 college, so I didn't play on any like sports teams, but they have club sports teams. So I did the club cross country team because I ran cross country in high school and I liked it a lot. um but that led to me, I would I would run a ton. Then my roommate got into like with lifting weights, so I was like, I want to try that, so I got into lifting weights. So then I found myself feeling torn between the two, and I would feel horrible if I just did one. I felt like I had to do both. I felt like I had to do all of it in one day. Or like for example, I would go on like a 7 mile run, and then I would go to the gym for like an hour and a half. at one time I remember I went to the gym for like 3 hours, and it's like, what are you doing? I drove myself crazy, and I had these food rules where, I'd have like a meltdown if I, either and this is where you can tell if it's disordered, is if you have like true anxiety, true guilt, like day ruining, awful feelings. If you go out of a routine, if you skip a workout, if you, no matter what it is, you could be sick, like it doesn't matter, or even for me, I had these like food rules where, I couldn't eat carbs at lunch. I had to eat a salad for lunch. Like, I don't know. I just had these rules that if I broke them, I felt really anxious, and I would, again, it could like ruin my whole day. I could have like a whole like meltdown over it, skipping a workout if I didn't expect to, all different things. And that's where it's disordered, when, you go out of a routine and it just ruins your whole day, causes anxiety, causes deep, deep feelings of guilt. And I felt that. So again, I was totally over exercising, and then I wondered why I was injured all the time. And then that was even more triggering because I couldn't work out the way that I liked to. So then it would cause more anxiety. So, looking back, I was most definitely dealing with like undiagnosed depression, undiagnosed anxiety. I had no self-awareness to know those are the feelings I was feeling, but knowing what I know now, looking back, definitely was depressed. 1000% was anxious. And I do believe I also had undiagnosed ADHD, which we talk about this all the time. I'm technically not diagnosed, but the more I learn about it, the more my whole life makes sense. And I did have a therapist tell me that she does believe that I have it, but never officially. But all of those things combined, and then being 3.5 hours away from home for the first time in my whole life. And then I share with you too that the relationship I was in at the time was like really rocky. There was just so many things going on. And I was really struggling to keep my head above water, to be honest. And a lot of eating disorders, although for me it was very much about my body image and the way that I looked, a lot of eating disorders are about control. So obviously my life fell out of control. For the first time, I was away from my family. I was away from my boyfriend at the time. And again, it was causing a lot of friction. And I was very codependent and had a lot of issues. So that was my whole world. And then, being on my own and making my own meals and eating from the cafeteria, and then no longer really playing a sport, so now I have to figure out my own exercise routine, and all you hear is the freshman 15. I'm so afraid to gain weight. There's other things that I really enjoyed that I totally let go of. Like I don't know if I ever shared, I think I might have shared with you, like I love to sing. I did the plays in high school. There's so many things like else that I enjoy outside of exercise, but because I was so anxious about gaining weight, I didn't care about any of that. You know what I mean? All I cared about was eating a certain way, getting in my workouts and doing what I had to do in order to feel normal. So yeah, college was like seriously the worst of it for me. It was rough.
Everything you said, I'm just like, yep, mm-hmm, yep. Because mine sounds literally so similar. Because I went to school, but I went to a D3 school, so much different. I was going to play field hockey, but I ended up not because I didn't feel good enough. Also didn't want to put in the effort. I was like, yeah, no. So I played for like I say like 20 minutes. That's how long I played. So but yeah, so I was like, all right, well, I don't have that and I want to like you said, the fear of like the freshman 15. So I was like, okay, I got to like continue to exercise, and it was my way of like I guess feeling something. But like you said, like now you have the complete restriction. So like I had to have a salad at lunch, and it was like, put this on it, this on it, this on it. And then at dinner, it was like extremely like portion controlled. And I think instead of snacking after, like I'm a big like after dinner snacker, sometimes still, but I think instead of that, it was like I'd have gum. So I'd just like be chewing gum all the time, right? But yeah, I'd wake up early and go to the gym, and I'd be there for like I don't even know, like you said, 2 hours maybe, but it was like a strict exercise routine, like, and mine was 6 miles, and it was, and then I did like abs. I think I did some arms, but I wasn't as into weightlifting as like you were saying, but yeah, and I think that's one thing that gets very I don't people don't talk about, I think, like an exercise addiction, really. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but because it's like, oh, exercise is good, like we're good, you're good, you're supposed to do that. But women, when we exercise too much, we can get to a point where we lose our periods.
Mhm.
And and I think I got to that point actually. So yeah, it's like So, and then of course injury too. So it was isolating,
Mhm.
felt alone, and then I had to like run for like I think it was like 5 days a week, maybe sometimes six. But I literally like I was feeling empty, like I think I already mentioned, but I put it before hanging out with people, making
Mhm.
connections. It was just like working out, schoolwork. Yeah. So it was just I don't know. Do you like have you ever heard of like other people talking about like exercise addiction stuff?
Yeah, I think that it might be, I'm not an 1000% an expert in the whole and like the whole field of eating disorders, but I think it's its own subset of things
Orthorexia,
like an exercise. Orthorexia
right?
is a piece of it, right? Orthorexia is like the obsession over like eating clean and
Okay.
eating like it's and I think there's an exercise component to that, but
Mhm.
exercise addiction is a legit thing. Honestly, of course, we know that exercise is good for us, like you said, but when you're using it as a tool to restrict, you know what I mean? Or you're
Mhm.
overdoing it with the intention of weight loss or whatever, like that's when it becomes a problem. Or again, if you skip it and it causes a great deal of guilt or anxiety, that's when you know that something is wrong. Yeah, I had the same thing. So many rules. I remember I never will forget this. Like I used to have to, if I went to the gym, I had to like burn 500 calories on whatever machine I was doing. And then I was allowed to like lift or do abs, whatever else I wanted to. Like I had to do
Mhm.
that first. I remember one summer, 2015 was like a 2015, 2016 was like again, that was when I was in college as well. Like really rough time for me. I was like probably the worst I'd ever had been. And that summer I worked at a summer camp. Um, and I used to wake up. I remember it was like 5:55 every morning. I would wake up, I would run 5 miles. Then I didn't have a car at that time. So my mom would drop me off at my friend's house who lived around the corner because we worked at the same place, and her mom or her brother would drive us to work. But my mom would go to work so early that like it would, camp didn't start till maybe like 9 a.m. or something like that. So, again, I wake up at 5:55, I'd get a shower, get dressed, go to my friend's house, and we would run 2 miles together. And then a lot of times I would try to be, of course, I'm up and active all day at camp, with the kids outside all day in the sun. And then a lot of times I'd go to the gym at night and I would lift. So, and again, it's same thing. I would put it above seeing anybody, and it ruined some relationships for me at that time. So yeah, when it takes over that's part of it too, I think, when it takes over your life. But I believe it is a piece of like an eating disorder. It's either an eating disorder on its own in a sense, or it's a big piece of one of them having like an exercise addiction. It's real.
I forget what it's called. I know I came across it in my like at my in my coaching schooling. Um, but yeah, I think like you're saying the restricting, but then I also had the binging. It's like
Hmm.
but it wasn't always, so I don't know if it technically was binging, but it was like, okay, like let me buy some candy and then we'll just like eat that. And then tomorrow, oh, I'll make up for it by, running 6 miles, but burning the
Right.
600 calories because I have to do a 10-minute mile for each mile. Yeah. So,
I did the same thing. Please, yeah, don't let me forget that the binging was a part of it for me too. Absolutely. I'd find myself my at college if my roommates were gone, I would grab any kind of like snack I could, and you would hide it. And again, that's what like an addict does, right? When
mhm.
they hide what they do out of shame, fear of others seeing, knowing deep down that like I'm not doing something I really should be doing. But again, because you're restricting yourself so much, all you're left to do is binge. And like that's what we have to talk to my clients about, is that it's always a cycle. It's a binge and restrict cycle. You start to restrict because you want to lose weight, look a certain way, whatever reason that may be, and then you do it for X amount of time. And then, of course, before you know it, you're going to crack. It's going to cause a binge. And of course, because you binge, you feel really guilty, you feel horrible. So you go to restrict again, and then the cycle just continues. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I remember sneaking all different types of foods when nobody was around. Even like when I would come home for breaks, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, my family was asleep, and I'd be like eating anything I could find. And I'd be, you get so upset and so mad at yourself. And in a way, again, it's triggering, because just like you said, okay, well now tomorrow I can't eat this or I can't eat that, or I'm going to have to burn 600 calories before I do anything. And um, yeah, it's when people hear about eating disorders, they think, oh, like people don't understand it unless you deal with it, but you don't understand like literally like the mental anguish that you go through on a daily basis. It's such an internal battle that you have to fight daily. It's so much anxiety, so much guilt. And it just can, it completely consumes you when you're going through it.
Hmm. So as far as the injuries, because I know I developed like bursitis in my hip. It was just like super
Oh.
painful. What injury kind of had stopped you?
Oh my God. I can't even but the amount of times I've been to physical therapy for somebody under 30, it should be like a world record. Like it was like I was injured like twice a year, every year in
Mm,
college. Like
okay.
I think the first thing I ever had was like my Achilles was bothering me. Then I've had hip, I've had groin, I've had knee, I've had back. Literally any like I'm not kidding. I put actually my foot one at one point too. I remember that my foot was hurting me at one point. So yeah, I've had a ton of even now, I think I had told you, I'm like, it's like now that I'm older too. But again, I think I always have to check in with myself. Like, am I overdoing it? You know what I mean? Like anytime I'm working out now, am I being dedicated and disciplined, or am I I don't want to say crazy, but you feel crazy. So I'm like, am I being a little crazy? Are we overdoing it? Even
Hmm.
now, I still check in with myself because sometimes it does like my knee hurts or my back hurts and I'm either overdoing it or sometimes I swear it's the universe telling me you have like slow down. And I used to never heed that warning. I would train through it. And then a 6 week injury turns into a 6 month injury. And then again, that's triggering because I can't work out the way I want to. So then I feel like I can't eat the way I want or whatever. I'm not going to look the way that I want. And again, even further, more triggering. So I know I can't pinpoint the one injury. There was
Hmm.
many.
Okay. Was there a specific moment that if it was in college or even like later on, where you realized you're like, oh wow, that like wasn't normal, or like this isn't okay? Did you ever have that like moment or wake up call moment?
Yeah, just looking back at everything that I did, like the again, like thinking it was normal to, like I said, like run 7 miles. Even my friends, I remember I would see like a close friend of mine that I'm still close with at the gym, and she'd come like way after me and then leave way before me. And she'd always be like, wow, like you're in there a while, like you're so you're so dedicated. And then um um just I just look back and I think about the way that I felt and the way that I things that I thought, and I'm just like, that was so wrong. Even not just with the food part, but like the depression piece of it. I literally remember, again, I went to Penn State. I went to a humongous school. They say like on a normal day, there's like 46,000 people on the campus at one time between students and faculty and staff and whatever. Um, and I literally remember walking around. I'm like, there's 46,000 people here, and I literally feel alone. And I have friends, like I was involved in things, but I just would walk around like literally like black cloud over my head. Like I remember thinking that I was like, I feel alone. I really thought that I was crazy and that like nobody felt that I felt. Nobody was like suffering like I was. Nobody understood. When of course, as we know, seriously, they said at Penn State, like you couldn't get a therapist because their mental health stuff was like to max capacity. It was like a waiting list because it's a tough time in life that aged, I think like 18 to 22. Plus just like there's so much pressure and a lot of stress with college. So that was the thing too. I didn't even think about therapy. I didn't even think about, so I think it was a lot of that. I look back and you feel sad for your younger self. You know what I mean? I know a lot of healing comes with like, I don't know if that's like shadow work, whatever, like going back and like, you know, feeling for that person and like giving them a hug or giving them what they need.
Hmm. I had a moment like that too, where you're like, oh, I'm in a room of people and I feel so alone. But I think mine was
Hmm.
like after my concussion, which was unrelated to exercise, but definitely triggered things because I could not even like run. I couldn't like because I felt so sick. Um, for like a year actually after I like, and I still to this day can't like jump and like do jump rope and stuff because like I feel like it makes me like nauseous. But yeah, I remember being in a room with like sorority sisters or whatever and just being like, wow, like I feel so alone right now. It's like it is. It's and but now thinking about it too, it's like you're saying, so much stress with schoolwork. We're with people that we haven't known necessarily for a long time. It's an adjustment, like learning learning new things and trying to find friends and everything. But then also thinking about it too, it's like, all right, well, people most likely weren't eating great. Like a lot of people in general don't eat tremendously. But then also on top of that, then we have the alcohol as well.
Hmm.
So, and I'm not saying don't drink anti-alcohol, but like it is a depressant. That's fact. So it's like
Hmm.
college is a crazy time, I feel like, for things.
Oh my God, your emotions. Like I look back, again, having the clarity now, like you look back, you're like, oh, and another thing too is like lack of sleep, right? Like
Right.
that's like, so between the food, the alcohol, the stress, the lack of sleep, it's like, you wouldn't survive. I mean, even now, like at 28, I'm like, I wouldn't survive, but like when you're young, you just think you're invincible and like you
Mhm.
have the energy, you just do it. But like I know, like looking back, it's like it's crazy. It's crazy. No wonder why people are so depressed and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So now you obviously are a dietitian, registered dietitian. How do you kind of, how have you improved your relationship with yourself? And what are some of these things that, maybe you make sure and check in with yourself that you do regarding like exercise and stuff?
Yeah, I think it helped me at first to follow people that were in recovery from eating disorders because they really had this like the awareness that I didn't have at the time to see like, oh, that really isn't right to feel anxious because I ate rice at lunch, like, and I'm not allowed to, or the fact that I even believe that I'm not allowed to, like, says who? Where does it say that I can't do that? Why do I have that thought? Why did I make that rule up? Or people that had said, I'm in the best shape of my life and I actually work out a lot less than I used to. And I'm like, wow, I never thought that was possible. So like, I think at first following people that were in recovery that truly understood what it was like to be in the depths of it and know what that's like, and then see them come out of that and how much more happy they were. I think that really helped me at first. Not to mention, then you start to get that awareness of like, when you're in that disordered mindset, no matter how tiny you get, no matter how thin you are, it's never good enough. So, and I understood that. Like when I heard that, I'm like, I totally relate to that because although I was in way better shape, there was no time in my life where I was more miserable. I could have looked the best, but there was no worse place to be than in my head at that point. So I think that started to help me, again, following people that were in recovery that understood and just kind of like going from there. That kind of started to help me. And then even some of the body positivity movement in a way that like I don't even if you want to change your body, right? Like in order to improve your health, or you know what I mean? If you feel like you need to do that, you could still love yourself at every single stage. Like, wow, like I'm actually allowed to love who I am. I don't have to beat myself up all the time. I learned that from a young age, like watching family members talk negatively about their own bodies. And I grew up thinking that was normal. You know what I mean? So I always talk negatively about myself and about my body. So learning that you don't have to do that and you can be confident. um so that kind of like got me out of it, you know what I mean, just knowing that, and truly just again just knowing that no matter when you're in that mindset, no matter how small you get, you'll never be satisfied. And that most people, I would say all people, when they're in the worst piece of their disordered eating, they're the most miserable that they've ever been. So it'll never make you happy.
I like how you emphasize that, like, no matter how, like, the size that you got, you were at your most miserable. And I think I completely resonate with that. And I think that's something that it's important to keep in mind too, because it's like, oh, somebody might look like a literal 10 out of 10, but how are you doing mentally? How are you doing like emotionally, spiritually? And that's like one of the things for sure that like made me realize, I'm like, one of the like that really stuck with me when I did my coaching program is like, oh wow, our health really is mind, body, and spirit. Because, I kind of, like you were saying, had awareness that I was like depressed or like anxious, and I'm taking care of my body. I'm working out, I'm eating healthy, like, at the time. But spiritually, I had no good connection to myself. I had no good connection to others, really. I mean, I had home friends, and freshman year of college, I had like a few friends, but I hadn't really met like my crew yet until like crew, quote unquote. I don't know why I said it like that, but my friends, my college friends, I didn't meet them till like sophomore year. So yeah, I had no like connection. I had yeah, so I completely had that spiritual like pillar, as we call it, like out out the window. So it was just like mind was fucked, so I just had the body, like quote unquote.
That's a
But
really good point. That's a really
yeah.
good point when you because I know you
Mhm.
encapsulate all that and it really is all of those things. And yeah, I think that it's it's really hard to feel if you don't feel connected to the spiritually or mind or in the mind, that yeah,
Mhm.
all you got is your body. So you work on that and it gets
Right.
crazy.
Right. And I think too, like looking at like today and like I think a few years back I realized like, oh, like because I still had the binge or emotional eating at I
Mhm.
ended up calling it, but the emotional eating I still struggled with. Working out not so much, but the emotional eating definitely, which would just lead me to like gain weight. But I realized eventually I'm like, oh, like I was still eating because I was disconnected from others when I was like
Mhm.
burning out. So I wasn't hanging out with a lot of friends. I was just, instead of working out, it was more like schoolwork, master's work. So yeah, it was definitely for me. I find myself binging when I am sad, or emotional eating when I am sad, or when I am feeling disconnected from others, for sure. So do you still like feel like you sometimes struggle with like binging, emotional eating today, or do you feel like that's something that you've like definitely maybe cleared, or I don't know how we want to say it, but
I still struggle with it. I do, but I've definitely, again, the awareness that I've gained, I see the times that I struggle with it most, and it's usually two things. It's one, when I'm having negative body image, when I'm being mean to myself, and it's actually been the last couple of weeks I've been doing that. So I've been struggling with like, just like you said, and just like you said, and with which I literally talk about to like 99% of my clients, they struggle with the nighttime eating, and I do too. I understand that. Um, but like I said, the one of two times I noticed that I do struggle with it more is if I have negative body image, because I'm overthinking how I look, and how the food and the way I exercise affects how I look, and then I'm obsessed with how I look, and then it just leads me to just get so overwhelmed that I just say screw it and I just eat my feelings or whatever. Or when I feel like, I guess it all is tied into like the negative body image, that I need to control how I'm eating more. Oh, I got so out of control. Like now I can't even look at the candy because I ate so much of it yesterday. Where so then, because I'm looking to now restrict myself, again, usually it all goes back to restriction. Then I start to, again, I overthink it. I get so stressed out that I just say forget it and I just eat anything and everything. So that's one thing that we see, is that for most people that struggle with binge eating, overeating, of course, emotional eating, it's all interconnected. A lot of it has to do with restriction. So, like that, again, back to that binge and restrict cycle, whether it's that you are restricting too many calories, or even that you're mentally restricting yourself, right? You're telling yourself you're not allowed to eat XYZ. So then you want it so much more because you're not allowing yourself to eat it. So now you created a hyper focus on it. And then eventually you're just gonna, again, you're gonna crack and just eat as much as you can get. So much of it comes from restricting, shame, guilt. Then again, we're restricting, then we eat whatever, then we feel guilty about it. So we restrict again. So I definitely still struggle with it. But luckily I found this awareness on why I do it. And then I have to attack that first and then just kind of go from
Mhm.
there.
And I think that's an awesome point. The awareness, that's where it really starts. I completely agree with you. Awareness of like, how are you feeling when it's like when you maybe want to eat, or like, or not eat, but like when, if one was feeling like they wanted to binge, like what's the
Mhm.
awareness? What's the trigger of it? Like what's behind that? And like, I think that helped me so much. But the restriction, definitely, yes, because it's like a little, like you're a little kid, literally. It's like, oh, don't touch that, Gina. Like, don't touch that. You
Mhm.
can't have that. Like, of course we're gonna want it. So I make sure, one of the things that helps me is like I literally make sure I'm like, all right, I'm gonna buy a chocolate bar every time I go out when I grocery shop, which is like once a week. And then I can have, a piece and like a night, like, or whatever, because I usually like to have sweet after my dinner.
Mhm.
And then usually that's like it, savor, like it does it for me. But I, of course haven't been great right now. But then I also noticed too, I don't know if you resonate with this, but like I feel like during, when it's sunnier out, when it's warmer out, I am definitely happier, and I'm definitely more active. And I mean, I try to have grace with myself with like the winter, because I'm like, oh, I'm hibernating. It's hibernation time for me. Like, though I am trying to still, I'm making myself still like walk and stuff, but like I'm definitely like not doing what I would normally do. Do you feel like for you, like seasons wise, you have a difference or anything?
I would say so. I mean, I'm definitely myself happier, way happier in the summertime when the sun is out and it's warm. I'm definitely, and again, then I feel more inclined to want to get moving. Yeah, I think seasons have a ton to do with it. When you live in a place that's cold and not super sunny majority of the year, it's tough. And I always like envy, although this, in our area, this past winter was pretty mild. We only had like a
Hmm.
small streak that was like freezing, frigid cold, like painful. But usually it's a lot colder. So yeah, I was say like I envy people that live in like a warm climate because like what's it like to like it's like dead of February and you go for a walk and like you can wear shorts. You don't need a jacket at least. Like it's crazy. So yeah,
Hmm.
I think seasons have a ton to do with it for most of us. I think most of us struggle with that.
Right. And then, especially, and then too, like, as a woman, most people have a specific time of month, maybe when they, want to eat more chocolate or something. So I always try to like keep that in mind too.
Mhm. Yes, I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. And there are a couple ways, if you don't want me going over it, there's some things that I talk with clients like help with this kind of the overeating and stuff like that,
Yeah,
like
definitely
struggling.
give us some tips. That was going to be one of my next questions.
Cool. Okay. So there's a couple things that I'll tell people, right? Like number one, talk yourself through it. Again, it goes back to awareness. Why do I want to eat this food, right? Whatever, cookies, chips, candy, chocolate, whatever it may be. Why do I want it? Is it because I had a crappy day? Is it because I'm feeling emotional? Is it because it's just there in front of me? Is it because whatever reason, right? Or is it because I actually am craving it and I really do want it? So of course you want to save eating it if you're able to. Again, not in a restrictive way, but it's like if it resonates with you, like if you really ask yourself, honestly, I don't want this right now. I'm mad or I'm upset or I had a crappy day or I'm just feeling whatever. And or even for me, sometimes I'm like, I just want it gone. It's there and I don't want to hear it call my name anymore. I want to eat the whole bag and be done with it. Right. Like I'll even tell it's a really convenient excuse, like I just want it out of my face. Like some people do that too. So first step I would always say is like just ask yourself, why do you want it, right? And if you can, try to stick to eating it when you actually want to eat it, when you're actually craving it. Because that's the thing, you're giving yourself we call it food freedom. You're giving yourself the freedom to choose rather than the feeling you need to restrict, right? I remember this even back in high school, I never was like my mom loves to save a buck. So I never was allowed to like buy lunch or anything like that. Really, I always packed lunch, but of course they have like French fries, all different good stuff. So kids at my table, I remember they would buy buy fries and stuff like that, and I'd be like, "You're not even allowed to look at the French fries today because you ate some yesterday, or I ate some whenever." Like and when I would go in with that mindset, I would want them so much more. Just like you said, it's like when you're a little kid, you're not allowed to do that, so you wanted so much more. So again, because I told myself that I'm not allowed to have the French fries, now I have a hyper focus on them, and I would like pray that my friend wasn't finishing them when she asked me if I want the rest of them, right? Rather than when I walked in there, I really noticed like, dude, if I want a French fry, I'll eat a French fry. If I don't want one, I'm not going to eat them, then it's fine. And that like blew my mind. So go into it the same way. I always tell people again, check in with yourself. Do you really want it? Right. And that's why you're going to eat it. But also just remembering that you're giving yourself the freedom to choose. If I want the food, I can have some. If not, it's not going anywhere. It's not going to mysteriously, spontaneously combust out of my pantry. Like it's going to be there tomorrow if I want it. It's not going anywhere. So I don't need to eat it all right now. Or even if you do have somebody in your house that eats all your food, Nestle, Hershey's, Frito-Lay, all your big brands, they're not going out of business. At any time, you're an adult with adult money, you can go out and buy a bag of chips or some candy. It's not going anywhere regardless, right? So again, check in with yourself. Do you really want to eat it or are you eating it for other reasons? Um, and then are you really giving yourself that freedom to choose? Again, where you're not restricting yourself, even if it's mentally, because sometimes maybe you'll actually let yourself eat it. And then you say, oh, I shouldn't be in your head. Like, I shouldn't be doing this. Oh my God, I suck. I can't believe I'm eating this. This is bad. I shouldn't be eating this. So then you didn't even fully enjoy the food, right? Because you're still, although you're physically eating it, you're mentally restricting yourself. So now you didn't even enjoy it because you still were holding yourself back, restricting yourself in some way. So again, make sure that if you're actually going to choose to eat the food, that you're actually letting yourself enjoy it, even in your own head? Or are you still, again, beating yourself up and trying to restrict yourself in some way? Um, so again, check in with, just going back over the steps, check in with yourself. Are you eating it because you want it or for any other reason? Are you really giving yourself the freedom to choose? Are you going into this situation with, if I want some, I'll eat some. If not, no big deal. It's not going anywhere. And you're truly giving yourself the freedom to choose. And then what can help for some people too is be smart about it, right? Try to practice moderation. I always say you can eat cookies, but it's definitely better to have 2 cookies instead of 10 cookies, right? It could be that simple sometimes. I could still have the cookies. I'm just being mindful of my portions. And how you can do that is, let's fill in the gaps with something else rather than getting extra cookies. Think about adding fiber, think about adding protein. So maybe what I'm doing is I'm going to have 2 Oreos, some Greek yogurt, and a sprinkle of blueberries. There we go. So I'm not just eating 2 cookies because that's not going to fill me up. But again, I'm still allowing myself to eat the cookies in moderation, but I'm being smart and balancing it with something that has fiber, something that has a little bit of fat, something that has protein. So it's a well-balanced snack that actually is going to keep you full. But again, it's sending that message to yourself that, look, I ate the cookies. I was in charge. I didn't eat too many, and I still let myself eat them. You're not depriving yourself in a way. So those are the things that I like to say, when it comes to that. And don't get me wrong, I know all of that, and I will still go against it and eat the chips right out of the bag, or eat the ice cream right out of the pint, or still overdo it. But again, if you end up doing that, remember just to forgive yourself. The worst thing you could do is to, number one, beat yourself up, and use that to do one of 2 things. Go on either extreme, right? Now that I overate tonight, now I have to restrict tomorrow. That's one extreme we don't want. Or I overate tonight, screw it. I might as well just eat like shit the rest of the weekend, and then I can just go, and then maybe on Monday I'll start again. So that's the other extreme, where now you're choosing to continue to make poor choices. It's that all or nothing mindset. I'm all the way on or I'm all the way off. You can find that. That's what I tell clients. Like, you can find that happy medium, that balance, that in between.
Oh, this was so helpful, all of those tips.
Thank
And
you. Sorry, I blabbed
yeah.
on as usual. I'm blabbing again, but
No, I wish I had you here around the other night when I was like, oh, I can't like, grab a portion. I gotta have the whole like bag. Still do it, but like you said, like you said, it's like more empowering when you do ask yourself and like you're able to analyze and like, why am I doing this? Da da da. And I feel that's one thing I'm like really grateful that I have like the tools and I do have the knowledge. And when I do, like you're saying, like we forgive ourselves and we trust and like in ourselves that okay, like I can I don't have to repeat this tomorrow. Like I have the control. That's what I try to remind myself too. So what about, do you have any tips regarding like um more so of like body image or anything that you personally do to like improve that or improve your relationship with yourself?
yeah. I again, I always remind myself and other people that, like, you know, I mean, comparison is a thief of joy, right? Even if you're just
Mm-hmm.
comparing yourself to your old self, that's a dangerous territory for me. Looking back at like high school pictures and early, even end, early mid end of, just college age pictures. Because I've definitely gained a little bit of weight since then, right? And like, I'm proud of myself that I'm able to like um be able to accept that, you know what I mean? And again, I think for me, it just kind of comes from remembering that when I know when I was in that place, or maybe I was in the best shape, maybe I was in the best shape of my life, maybe I was way thinner, maybe I was way more toned, whatever it may be. I know that for me, I wasn't in a healthy spot mentally, and I don't want to go back there, and I can accept my body for what it is, especially I feel like for us, as you get like into like your mid to late 20s, although we're still like totally in the prime of our lives. You and I don't have children yet, so like that hasn't like changed our bodies in a sense or anything. Still your body's different. Like, I'm like a legit adult woman now, you know what I mean? Where when I was 17, I really wasn't. You're still a kid, you know? So that's what I remind myself too, is that like, and I look back to it, I'm like, I don't have any worse habits than I do now. I don't have worse habits than I did when I was 17. I'm just not 17 anymore. When you're a teenager, you have that teenage metabolism. You can get away with everything. So things just do change as you age. Um, and I know too that I don't need to beat myself up for the way that I look. It just, what does that, especially the spiritual aspect, right? Your body is just like a vessel for the soul. It's what it's says nothing about you. Again, I do believe I want you, you want to take care of it. Absolutely. But, you know, eating disorders isn't taking care of your body either. Even if you are thinner, it doesn't mean you're healthy. So, I just have tried to tell myself that I need to accept myself where I am. And I will say this too, even if I'm not super happy with how my body looks right now, remember, I can change that if I want to, and I can do it in a healthy way. But nothing is permanent. I can always change it if I'd like to as well. I'm not stuck here. Um, so it's hard. It could be a daily battle. But I think too, like I said, another thing I do is I try to just remember, like, what's it going to help if I sit here and just like when you like worrying's not going to do anything. Sitting here and beating myself up isn't going to change my body anyway. So it's tough. It's like a daily battle, but I try to remind myself of those things, and just try to stay away from comparing. And if I do, just remember where I was, and I don't want to ever go back there.
I like how you said you have the power, and I think that's super important. And like, it can be hard to accept sometimes that, oh, like I do have the power. So, because like I've been there before, where it's like like where we feel like uncontrolled. But
Hmm.
I think another thing I want to add to that is like we also have to remind ourselves that it's when we want to do these things healthy, improve our, whether it's our what we're eating, improve our exercise routine, or maybe like tone up a little bit, like whatever somebody maybe wants to do. It's, in my thoughts, in my opinion, important to do it healthy, in a healthy way. And then of course, if we're doing it in a healthy way, it's going to take time. And I think that's one thing where like some of the celebrities still today, and I'm sure we can probably be thinking of some of the same ones right now, but like, there some people were turning to like that Ozempic stuff, and like, showing us that like, oh, I can lose 20 pounds in 9 days to fit into like this dress or whatever. And it's just so problematic. I mean, it's just like for the young girls that still like, of course, look up to that. I mean, I think like that generation, her, if you know who I'm talking about, that generation's a little bit still in this, the skinny culture, but, or whatever we want to call it. But yeah, I think so super important to do it in a healthy way and reminding ourselves it's going to take time. So like 1%, I love the Atomic Habits quote. I don't know if you read that book yet, but one, if we make a change or whatever, if we do 1%, we end up 37 times better at the end of the year. So if we do something, so I don't even know if I think I missed some words. Okay, let me say that again because my like ADHD blah, 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 brain is like, blah, blah, blah. Okay, every day, if you do something every day, you get 1% better every day. By the end of the year, you'll end up 37 times better than where you started. That's what I was trying to say. So yeah, so like especially in winter right now, I'm like, all right, well if I can at least walk, like that'll, because usually I'm doing more like maybe a run outside, like when it's hot and I can just be in the sun. But I can't do that now.
Hmm.
So it's like, all right, well if I at least walk, that's something for me. It makes me feel good. Or I can lift some weights. Like, so yeah, I think just like I try to remember that the 1%, and it's good to do it healthy because I think when we do it in a healthy way too, it's more lasting.
Absolutely. It's more sustainable. That's like
Mhm.
what I try to like preach to my clients is like, especially because most people that go to see somebody, it's like they've been through the ringer with like dieting and the yo-yoing up and down, and it gets old. You want like long lasting, sustainable lifestyle changes that lead to results. And that you're exactly right. It's so hard because it goes against like our human nature and like our need for instant gratification. But I try to tell clients like you definitely can. If you wanted to, you could probably lose 20 pounds this month if you wanted to. But I guarantee you that however you did that, you're not going to be able to keep up with it. And you probably lost all water weight and all muscle mass. And what does that do for you? Nothing. It was hardly a fat loss. So
Mhm.
you're right. I really resonate with what you everything you just said. And I like that too, like the 1% better. Um, or even just taking the thing, like even for me, and it's not lazy, but it sounds it in a sense, but it's like something is always better than nothing. Again, a lot of us have that perfectionist mindset. Like I used to be like, oh, if I don't have an hour to work out, then like what's the point? I'm
Mhm.
not doing it. Or
Right.
you know like, and like what, in what world is that rational? Like if all I have is 20, like seriously, I always say like all I have is 20 minutes. I could spend that 20 minutes on my butt, like watching TV or scrolling on my phone, or I could just get out and walk or jog or lift, like do something. Like anything counts because these results are cumulative. So it's just it's hard. It's pushing past the perfectionism of it too. It's like, we always say consistency is much better than perfectionism, because if you strive to be perfect, you're going to either stop, you're going to land someplace you don't want to be. But if you're consistent, you're most likely going to get your results. It's going to take time, but you'll get your results. And being consistent is the best thing you could do, because the best workout you could do, the best diet plan you can do is one that you could keep up with forever. You know, that's it.
I love that quote. The something is better than nothing. Then the one thing I realized that is non-applicable to, completely unrelated, but it's not, don't, something is not better than nothing related regarding dating. No.
That's a whole other
So that's a
podcast.
whole, yeah, that's a whole nother podcast episode. But I was like, okay, that's the only area, like some attention's better than nothing. No,
Right.
it has to be, no, we don't settle for people with red flags. Mm-mm.
No.
So yeah, unrelated topic, but yeah, I love the something better than nothing, because that's where I still notice myself too. Like with, okay, I only have 15 minutes. Well, that's nothing. I'm used to a 30-minute exercise. That's a workout. 45 minutes, that's a workout. 60 minutes, that's a workout. 15 minutes, I don't have time. Like, what's the point? I still like find myself like thinking that way. So but I have been doing like 15-minute things like this week. So I'm like, hey, movement, that's what matters
It's
for
true. It
me.
adds up. I even tell clients like have you not like broken a sweat cleaning your bathroom, or like mopping your floors or vacuuming, like housework, even like yard work, gardening, like those are considered exercise in a sense, because you're still moving, like you're still moving your body. And think about the things you do at the gym, like you're lifting things up, you're putting them up here, you're squatting, like that's what you do when you do things in your daily life anyway. So um yeah, the older I get, I feel the same way. I think any movement is movement is movement, and anything is better than nothing. And then the older I get too, like, we had said about the over exercising and all the injuries, and like the older I get, I'm like, when I was young, I always thought like, how many calories can I burn in one day, and like try to push that as far as I could. But as I get older, I think of longevity. Like I'm like, oh my God, like I'm 28 and my knee hurts. Like I might be here another 60 years on this earth. Like I need my knees forever.
Probably 70
You
years.
need your body. I want to be in my 50s, 60s, 70s. And yeah, maybe I'm not like intensely weightlifting or running long distances, but I want to be able to move my body. You know what I mean? So the older I
Hmm.
get, I think of that too. I think of longevity. So it doesn't have to be crazy intense workouts, 7 days a week like I used to want to do, because no wonder why my body was breaking down. So seriously, as I get older, I really want to focus on longevity of it too, because I want my body to work as long as it can.
Hmm. Right. And I think too, kind of, I guess, with whatever we do, thinking about the angle that we're coming from. Are we coming from an angle of like loving ourselves,
Mhm.
or of like hating ourselves and thinking that we are lacking? I think that's one thing that I I try to keep in mind too. And
That's a
just
huge piece of it. That's what I always say. It's like, what's your intention behind it, right?
the
Even if
intention,
like,
that's the word. Thank you.
right, what's the intention? If you want to, oh, I want to run a marathon. That's great. Is the intention because I want to lose weight and be skinny, or because I want to challenge myself? I want to see if I can do it. I want to cross off my bucket list, right? There's always your intention behind something. Even if you go out to eat, and I was saying this to a client this morning that actually unfortunately has been dealing with anorexia since she was 16, and she's like well into her 30s. You see how ingrained this is in people, and
Mm,
and the struggle that they go through.
yeah.
um but how, like, if you go out to eat, and for somebody it could be a win that they ate the bagel with cream cheese, or for other people it's a win that they chose the vegetable omelet instead, right? Where, because for some people, they struggle so hard to allow themselves to eat a bagel, and for other people, it was a win for them because they chose the lighter option. So same thing, if you choose a lighter option, what's your intention behind that? Is it because it's what you really wanted, right? Did you get the salad because you wanted the salad, or did you get the salad because you really wanted the burger and fries, but that's horrible for me, I'm not allowed to eat that, and that'll make me fat, and if I do that, I'll that says so much about me, and I'm fat and lazy. It's like it's all about your intention behind the choices that you make too. Absolutely. And I think if you've ever struggled with disordered eating patterns or exercise patterns, you have to check in with yourself. Like I said, even myself, if I want to do a 2 a day, where maybe I'll wake up early and get a little bit of cardio in, then at night get a lift in, am I doing that because I have specific goals in mind, or because I'm feeling disciplined and motivated that day? or is it with a, again, that overdoing it kind of mindset. So you're absolutely right. The intention is always a piece of it.
Oh, this has been so great. Is there anything else that you want to add with what we've been talking about, or advice, or just like an inspiring quote, whatever comes to mind?
um Yeah, I like what you said about, I used to say that to my clients too, like, where are you coming from when you choose to do things right from a place of love, from a place of self-hatred? And um, when I went on like this whole like spiritual journey and like spiritual awakening, like healing
At
journey.
the same
We
time we
talked
did.
about that. I know, like for me,
So
that was back
crazy.
in 2020 in the height of COVID. Luckily I was able to, it was tough, but I was luckily able to use that time, to like do a lot of healing work. And I learned that, I had heard through some people and their spiritual teachings, like, you can choose love or you can choose fear. Like the opposite of love is fear. And I think so many things that we do are out of fear. So the negative things, right? So many negative things that we may do, think, feel are all out of fear. So I feel like overall, if you can, always choose love. Anytime that you're able to choose love for yourself, for other people, because the world needs more of it, number one. But
Hmm.
also, you get what you give, right? Like if you put love out there, you will always get it back. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think that's it. Between love and fear, always choose love if you can.
I love that. Yep. And like attracts like. I always try to remember that too.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if I'm like, there's some weird people coming in my life, I gotta check and be like, am I like not okay right now? Like because of, being nasty or something. So yeah, I always try to, it's amazing like once you, and then of course like we have our boundaries that we can set, and like who do we let in. Now I'm getting onto a whole nother topic,
I
but
know.
I
We
love
could do
that
a whole
quote.
other thing on that. I know. I
Yeah,
love that
we
topic
can.
though.
We'll have to do another episode and where we talk about our spiritual journeys
Yes, I love it.
and like how that went and everything.
Yeah.
That's so cool. How about you want to tell everybody where they can find you, or like if you like and whatnot?
Sure. Yes. I'm trying to be more active on social media if I'm able to. But all of like my handles are the same. It's Balance by Gina. So at Balance by Gina. I like to post TikToks. I do have an Instagram and then I have a YouTube as well.
Okay. Yeah, you'll have to let me know the YouTube, and then I can put everything in the show notes. Is there a D in balanced, or just balance?
Oh, yeah. So no, so it's just Balance by, yeah, just BALANCE,
Okay.
Balance by Gina, Gina. And my YouTube name is also the same.
Okay, perfect. So then I can put it in on
Thank you.
the show notes. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for spending your time with me today and for being so open and vulnerable with your story. And I'm really grateful for you and to have you in my life and everything. So,
Yes, I feel the same way. Thank you so much, Tammy, for having me. Thank you for listening. And yeah, this is my first podcast ever. What a dream come true. So I
woo!
so appreciate you just in general as usual. And yeah, thank you again. This was awesome. I had so much fun.
All right, well, I will talk to you soon.
All right.